So to start this off, we're going to hit Shift-A, search for Mesh and Icosphere. Give it 5 subdivisions, right-click it, and shade smooth. Then we'll go to our camera and switch the focal length to something like a 102. This gives us a nice view of our mesh. Then if we go over to the rendered preview, for the lighting, we're going to turn off Scene World, go to the built-in HDRIs, and we're going to select this sunset one. Next, we're going to head over to the shading workspace. We're going to go to object mode, select our icosphere, press new material, and then we are ready to go. Make sure you also go to rendered preview here, switch the world opacity down to 0, and go to the correct HDRI that's already built into Blender. Now we'll be pressing Shift-A, search for a noise texture. Then go to Edit Preferences and make sure you have the Node Wrangler add-on checked. Then you're good to go. Then we'll press Ctrl-T, move the object into the vector. If we Control-Shift and left-click on this noise texture, we can preview it. Then on this texture, we'll be switching the scale to a 15, the detail to a 2, and the roughness will be going to a 1. Then we're going to hit Shift-A and add a color ramp. And then on this color ramp, we're going to move the black to a 0.336. So you can go ahead and type that in manually. And then we'll be moving the white in a bit as well, and a little bit. But we're going to want 3 levels of detail on this volcanic rock to get the little holes going on. So I'm just going to grab this, move this over here, select the noise texture and the color ramp, and hit Control, Shift, and D. And then do that one more time. So we have our 3 levels of detail here. So on the second noise texture, we're going to switch the scale to a 20 and leave the other settings as is. And on this third one, we'll switch the scale to a 30 and leave the other settings how they are, like so. Next, we're going to be moving the white nodes right here in a little bit. So we're going to move this one to a 0.525. Then on the second one, we're going to move the white into a 0.405. And then on the third one, we're going to move the white into a 0.425. And essentially what this is doing is it's upping the contrast a lot between the three, between the black and the white. So now we're going to mix these together. So we're going to hit Shift-A, search for a Mix RGB node. We're going to switch the blend mode here to multiply, turn on clamp, and switch the factor to a 1. If we Control-Shift and left-click this node, we can see what is happening. We're going to take the color from the first color ramp and put it into color 1, and from the second color ramp into color 2. And this is just multiplying these together. Then we're going to select the multiply node, hit Shift-D, add it right here, plug the third color ramp into color 2, and then the previous multiply node into color 1. So now we have our mixed nodes. So all we have to do now is factor this into the bump. So Shift-A, search for a bump node, and then put this color into the height. And then on this bump node, we will take the normal and plug into the normal of our principled BSDF here, the shader. And if we Control-Shift and left-click the shader, we can see what is going on here. This is essentially adding holes into the mesh. But you can see it's way too smooth in some areas, and so we need to add some bump for that. So to do that, we're going to hit Shift-A, search for a noise texture. And then we're going to take the vector from this guy and plug it into the vector of the noise texture. Then we're going to hit Shift-A and we're going to add 2 color ramps this time. So we'll add this one, I'll hit Shift-D and do this. So I'm just going to be using this to create 2 different kinds of bump right here. So on this noise texture, we're going to take the factor and plug it into both color ramps. Then switch the scale to a 50, the detail to a 16, and the roughness to a 0.6. Then on this bottom one right here, we're going to take this black and move it up to a 0.35. If we Control-Shift and left-click, we can preview what is happening here. This is just going to be the bump where the holes are not. And then up here is going to be the bump where the holes are. And on this one, we're going to be leaving the values all the way apart like this. But we're going to be switching this this white here to a gray of a value of 0.1, no hue or saturation in it at all. So then to mix these guys, we're going to hit Shift-A, search for a mix node, plug this color right here into color 1, and this into color 2, switch this mode to clamp. And then for the factor on this guy, we're going to take this color from the final multiply node and put it into the factor. If we Control-Shift and left-click on this node, this is a preview of what this next bump is going to look like. So you can hit Shift-A, search for the bump node to convert it to normal data, and then move this color into the height, and we're going to switch the strength all the way down to a 0.6. If we control shift and left click this bump, we get this. So now we're going to take this normal and plug it into the normal of the other bump. And then we can control shift and left click the principled shader. And we have this going on right now. And currently the colors are not exactly what we want them to be, but the bump is looking quite good. And the color for this is quite simple. All we're going to do is we're going to take this noise texture and this color ramp, select them both, hit Control Shift D, move them both all the way up here, and then Control Shift left click this color ramp. And if you want to switch the colors to make them slightly more realistic, we can take the value on this black, move it to like a 0.025, saturation to something close to a 0.05, and the hue to like a 0.65, like that. Then here, actually we're going to move then on this next one, we can take this gray, we can switch the color, remove the value, we're going to leave the value where it is, switch the saturation to like a 0.1, and the hue again to like a 0.65. So we have a bluer color like that, and that'll be the color for this. So if we plug the color into the color of the final product of the principled shader, we are getting this right now. If you're wondering why it's looking green over here, it's because of the lighting. So if we want, we can change the HDRI to something more of a white light, and we can see the actual colors coming through here quite nicely. Next, all we have to do is add the roughness, which is really easy. We just hit Shift A, search for a color ramp. Right here, we're going to take this noise texture factor, plug it into here, Control Shift left click to preview. And rocks are very rough, so they're never going to be 0 roughness anywhere. So we're going to move this all the way up to a 0.6. So the roughness will range between 0.6 and then all the way to a fully rough. So we'll plug that color into the roughness, preview the shader once again, and we have our finished volcanic rock material. As always, make sure you come back and check the channel out again if you have any other materials you need to make. I'm sure I have something like that, and if I don't, drop a comment letting me know what materials you need to learn how to make. I'll figure out a way to make it and then make a tutorial on it. So with that said, I'll see you in the next one.